Hey everyone. So, have you ever thought about how you could improve your finances? Like without having to make some crazy drastic change?
Yeah, it's like you just want to have a better handle on things, but without becoming like a financial expert overnight, right?
Exactly. Well, get this. This deep dive
Yeah.
is all about tiny financial habits that could lead to some seriously big returns.
Seriously, it's pretty amazing.
I know. It's based on this awesome blog post someone shared. It's wild how those small changes you make can, like, snowball over time.
It really is. What really gets me is it's not about like cutting back on everything or suddenly changing your whole life.
Yeah.
It's more like how a tiny snowball rolls down a hill, right?
Yeah.
It picks up more and more snow, gaining momentum, and before you know it, bam, it's huge.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
That's the power of compounding, but it's applied to the things you do every single day.
Okay, so we've all heard about compounding when it comes to, like, investing in the stock market.
Yeah.
But how does that same idea apply to, say, my morning coffee?
Okay, so think about it this way. Even if you only manage to save a little bit, like $5 a week, by skipping that extra latte,
Okay, yeah.
that's $260 a year. Now imagine investing in that consistently. Even if you're just getting a modest return, you wouldn't believe how much that could grow to over time. Like, let's say 30 years.
Whoa, 30 years is a long time.
It is, and it's the consistency that's key here. Like that little snowball rolling and rolling, that's what makes it work.
So you're saying my latte habit could secretly be the thing that funds my retirement. I'm in. But seriously, that's an awesome way to think about it. The blog post also talked about things like rounding up purchases with apps. You know, those things that round up to the nearest dollar and save the difference. Is that another tiny habit we can use to our advantage?
Absolutely. Those apps are great. And things like setting up automatic transfers into your savings account. It's like you're setting your financial snowball rolling without even thinking about it.
Right. It just happens automatically.
Exactly. And for someone who's, just starting out, micro investing platforms are pretty cool. They make it really easy to get your feet wet in investing. You don't need like a ton of money up front.
This is making me think differently about those spare change jars I used to have.
Yeah.
You know, as a kid, like, what if I'd actually invested all that spare change? But this blog post doesn't stop there. It goes into these specific daily habits, right?
Right.
You know, the ones that can actually help you see bigger financial returns.
Exactly. It focuses on three main habits, and the first one is tracking your expenses.
Uh-oh. Tracking expenses, that sounds a little intimidating.
It doesn't have to be. You don't have to become an accountant or anything. A simple spreadsheet or even one of those budgeting apps will do the trick. The main thing is awareness.
Okay, so just knowing where your money's going.
Yeah. You can't improve what you don't measure, right?
That's so true. I get overwhelmed just thinking about all my accounts and credit cards and everything.
Yeah, can be a lot.
But what if I just focused on, say, my food spending for a week? That feels way more doable. Plus, who knows, maybe I'd discover some interesting patterns.
Exactly. Small steps and focused attention, that's the key. The second daily habit the blog post talks about is budgeting. And again, it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming task. Even spending like 15 minutes a week can make a big difference.
Okay, 15 minutes. Some people might think, ugh, who has time for that? But honestly, 15 minutes, that's way less time than I spend just scrolling on my phone doing nothing.
You got that right. And honestly, budgeting can even be kind of fun. Think of it like a puzzle. You're optimizing your spending so you can do more of the things you actually want to do. And finally, there's automatic savings, which we touched on a little earlier.
Oh, yeah, automatic savings, right?
The best part about it is you set it up once, and then it's like your future self is constantly high-fiving you.
I love that. Future me's going to be so happy. So it sounds like taking these small, consistent actions is actually more powerful than trying to make these huge, crazy changes.
Right. Exactly. Small, consistent actions.
That makes me feel way less stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Everyone always says, start small. But how do I actually make these habits stick? You know what I mean? I'm pretty good at starting things, but I'm not always the best at finishing them.
I hear ya. We've all been there. The blog post has some really helpful tips. First off, like you said, start small. Pick one habit, nail it down, and then think about adding more.
Okay, one habit at a time.
It's kind of like when you're learning an instrument. You don't start with a whole symphony orchestra, right?
Right.
You start with one note, then another.
That makes sense. So what other tips does the blog recommend?
This one's a game changer. Connect your new habit to something you already do every day.
Oh, interesting.
For example, maybe you review your budget every Sunday morning while you're sipping your coffee. Or you schedule that transfer to savings right after you get paid. It becomes automatic.
I like that. It's like I'm tricking my brain into making good financial choices. And I bet technology can play a big part in this too, right?
Absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of those apps. They can automate your savings, they can track your expenses, and some can even give you these insights into your spending patterns, things you would never notice otherwise.
Wow, technology is pretty amazing. Okay, so we've got some great foundational tiny habits down. But what about investing? That feels like a whole different world. So honestly, it kind of intimidates me.
That's understandable. Investing can seem like a whole different beast. But even with investing, you can apply that tiny habit mindset and see incredible results.
All right, so welcome back. I'm excited to dig deeper into this tiny habits thing. In part one, we got a great sense of how these small actions can really shake up our financial lives, in a good way.
Definitely.
But I'm still kind of stuck on this investing piece. When it comes to investing, what does a tiny habit approach even look like? It feels so different from like making a budget or saving money.
Yeah, you're right. It's a different area of finance.
Right.
But those same principles, they totally still apply.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
So instead of, trying to find the next big stock that's going to explode or like making a ton of money overnight.
Right. Get rich quick, not going to happen.
Exactly. The tiny habit way is about steady learning and consistent action.
So, slow and steady wins the race.
Exactly. It's more like training for a marathon than trying to climb Mount Everest in one day,
Okay, I like that analogy. That feels way more manageable.
You're building up your knowledge and experience little by little.
So where do we even begin with that? This blog post you shared mentions learning about investing as like a habit in itself. But that seems so broad. Any advice on where to focus?
Yeah, so instead of getting overwhelmed by like the whole entire world of investing,
Right, it can be so overwhelming.
it really can. Start with just committing like 10 minutes each day to learning about one specific topic.
10 minutes a day, okay.
Pick something that seems interesting to you. Maybe it's ETFs or maybe it's like the psychology of investing. Who knows?
Yeah, that behavioral stuff is always fascinating.
Right. And the cool thing is there's a ton of free stuff out there to help you learn. Articles, videos, even podcasts like this one.
All right, shameless plug. I like it. But okay, I got to be honest. Sometimes I get what I call analysis paralysis. There's so much info out there. I don't even know where to start. Are there any must-know concepts that would help me feel a bit more confident, as I start this investing journey?
Absolutely. So understanding the different types of investments is a big one. Things like stocks, bonds, real estate. That's key.
Okay, yeah, stocks and bonds I've heard of, but what about this whole real estate thing?
We can talk more about that another time, but it's definitely a good one to learn about.
Okay, cool.
And then there's diversification. Diversification is basically just spreading out your investments. So different industries, different types of assets, you're reducing your risk that way.
So it's like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. More like having a basket for each type of egg.
I love that. Okay, that makes total sense. The blog post also mentioned this thing called risk tolerance. What does that even mean? And how do I even figure out what mine is?
That's a great question. Risk tolerance is all about how comfortable you are with potentially losing money.
Uh-oh, losing money.
Well, the idea is you could lose money in the short term, but you're hoping for bigger gains over time.
Okay, I see.
And, it's different for everyone. Some people are totally cool with taking big risks, and some people not so much.
Makes sense.
And there are actually online quizzes and stuff that can help you figure out your risk tolerance.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to look for one of those.
Knowing your risk tolerance is super important when you're making decisions about where to put your money. You want to make sure you're investing in a way that makes you feel comfortable.
Right. I don't want to be stressing about my investments all the time.
Exactly. No one wants that.
This is already making me feel so much more, empowered. Like I'm finally starting to understand the language of investing. But even with taking these baby steps, actually starting to invest can feel pretty scary.
Yeah.
Any tips on taking that first leap?
Oh, I totally get it. It can seem like a huge jump. But remember, we're talking tiny habits here, right? So we're not diving headfirst off a cliff. We're taking one careful step on solid ground.
Okay, one step at a time.
Even if you only invest a little bit each week, like a few dollars, it can make a huge difference over time. Thanks to that compounding magic we talked about. And there are platforms out there like robo-advisors and micro-investing apps that make getting started easier than ever.
Robo-advisors. Those sound intriguing. The blog post mentioned them, but I'm not really sure what they are.
So robo-advisors are basically these automated platforms that manage your investments for you.
Oh, wow. So they do all the work.
Pretty much. They use algorithms and stuff to create a portfolio based on your risk tolerance and your goals.
Okay, that sounds pretty high-tech.
It is. It's kind of like having your own personal financial advisor, but without the high fees that usually come with that. They're a great option for beginners who, maybe don't have a lot of time or experience to manage their own investments.
Wow, so technology is really changing how we invest.
Hmm.
But I guess even with robo-advisors, you still need to check in every once in a while and make sure everything's on track, right?
You're absolutely right. One tiny habit you can build is reviewing your investments, like every 3 months.
Quarterly, got it.
It's not about constantly making changes, though. Think of it more like a checkup, just to make sure your investments still match up with your goals. Kind of like getting your car serviced regularly so you don't run into bigger problems down the road.
Okay, that's a good analogy. I get it. So with investing, just like with budgeting and saving, it seems like the key is finding that balance between, setting things up but also staying involved. But what really gets me motivated? It's seeing real people who have succeeded with this approach. Does this blog you shared have any of those, inspiring stories?
It totally does. There's one story that really blew my mind. It was about this guy who became a millionaire just by saving and investing his spare change.
Wait, a millionaire from spare change?
I know, right? It's incredible. He collected his loose coins every single day. He took them to the bank, and he invested that money consistently for decades.
Wow. Talk about the power of small, consistent action.
Seriously, it's the ultimate tiny habit success story. What other examples were there? Oh, there was a young woman who started investing just $1 a day when she was in her 20s.
$1, that's it.
Yeah, and by the time she was in her late 30s, she had built up a pretty significant portfolio, all thanks to the power of compounding and, that discipline of investing small amounts regularly.
That's amazing. And what was the other story?
Oh, there was a couple who reached financial independence super early. They were just really smart about how they spent their money, and they were super diligent about tracking their budget.
So they were just really good at budgeting.
They were, and they proved that you don't have to be making tons of money to achieve financial freedom.
Wow, these stories are so inspiring. They really show that building wealth is like a marathon, not a sprint,
Absolutely.
And it proves that even small, consistent actions can lead to amazing results. But honestly, staying motivated on that marathon can be tough. Any tips on keeping the momentum going, especially when you're not seeing those results right away?
It's all about celebrating your progress along the way and embracing that whole delayed gratification thing.
Delayed gratification, that's a tough one.
It can be, but acknowledge those small wins, like maybe you hit a savings goal or you learned a new investing concept. Celebrate those. And remember those little sacrifices you make today, like skipping that fancy latte or packing your lunch.
Right, brown bagging it.
Exactly. Those are the things that are going to pay off big time down the road. It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm feeling totally pumped to plant some financial trees.
Yep.
But before we get too carried away, I want to go back to the practical stuff. How do we actually make these tiny habits part of our daily lives? Any tips on making it all work? All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered so much ground already. We talked about compounding those incredible stories of everyday people becoming millionaires.
I know, it's mind-blowing, right?
It really is. It's clear these tiny habits can really pay off big time when it comes to our finances. But for me, and I'm sure for some of you listening out there, that first step, that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Where do we actually begin?
You're so right. It's all about taking action. But instead of getting overwhelmed by everything, think about it like, when you're looking at a menu at a restaurant, right? You've got all these amazing options.
Yeah, and you want to try everything.
Exactly. But you wouldn't try to eat the whole menu in one sitting. You pick one delicious appetizer to start, right?
Yeah, pace yourself.
Exactly. It's the same with your finances. Pick one tiny habit that really speaks to you, something you can actually commit to starting. Like today.
Ooh, so it's like a financial tasting menu. I love that. Okay, so maybe for me, I'll start by setting up an automatic transfer to my savings account. Every time I get paid, it's not a huge amount, but I know it'll add up over time.
Perfect. That's a great one to start with. And once you've picked your habit, think about how you can actually make it stick. Could you connect it to something you already do, like maybe set a reminder on your phone? Or have you ever thought about getting an accountability buddy?
An accountability buddy?
Yeah.
Like for my finances?
Yeah, someone to cheer you on and keep you motivated.
Oh, I love that. It's
Yeah.
like having a financial cheer squad. Plus, it's way more fun to celebrate those wins together.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of celebrating wins, don't forget to actually track your progress.
Oh yeah, track that progress.
Seeing those little victories add up, it can be super motivating, and it helps you stay on course. Whether you use a fancy app, a spreadsheet, or even just like a notebook, find a way that works for you to make that progress visible.
You know, it's funny. I track my steps and like my calories for my physical health,
Yeah.
but I've never really thought about doing that for my finances.
It's a good idea.
It's like we need a financial fitness tracker
Yeah.
to see how we're doing and to celebrate those milestones.
I love that idea. And just like with physical fitness, there are going to be days when you maybe miss a workout or you decide to have a treat. It happens. The same goes for our financial habits. There will be times when you slip up or something unexpected happens. The key is to not be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes.
Exactly. Acknowledge it, learn from it, and most importantly, get right back on track.
Progress, not perfection. That's the motto.
Yeah.
And, just like a personal trainer can help you stay motivated and reach your fitness goals, are there resources like that for our finances?
Absolutely. There's so much out there. Books, podcasts, online communities, financial advisors. The list goes on. Don't be afraid to reach out, to ask questions, to learn from others who have already been on this journey. You don't have to do it all alone.
Yeah, it's like building a financial dream team. Something that really stuck with me from earlier in our deep dive was this idea that financial literacy isn't just about us. It's about empowering other people too.
Yeah.
The more we learn, the more we can share with our families, our friends, our communities.
You're so right. Financial literacy, it's like this ripple effect.
I love that.
By sharing what we know and what we've experienced, we can help create a world where everyone has the tools to really thrive financially. Just imagine the positive impact we can have just by talking openly about money and sharing what we've learned.
That's a beautiful vision. It's about helping each other out, creating a world that's more financially inclusive. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into these tiny habits for big financial returns, what's the one message you hope our listeners will take away from all this?
I hope they remember that even small, consistent actions can lead to really amazing results. It's not about overnight success or getting rich quick. It's about making those mindful choices each day, choices that build up over time and create a brighter financial future.
It's like planting those tiny seeds, the seeds that will eventually grow into a mighty oak tree. And it all starts with that first step, that first tiny habit. So what tiny habit are you going to commit to today? We'd love to hear about it. Share your thoughts with us on social media. And remember, even the smallest step forward is a step in the right direction. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.